We have Sean Rose with the stories making the news this week. Sean?
Greetings, Edrenka. Greetings, viewers. A very interesting story this week. And before I get into it, I must say I just left the Botanical Gardens, the GR Botanical Gardens, where Sir Richard Branson and, of course, the Branson Entrepreneurship Center and KPMG just launched the Entrepreneurial Center right here in BVI. First launched in Jamaica in 2011, and now they are expanding throughout the Caribbean. And of course, the BVI is fortunate enough to be the next place, or the place now, where the Center for Entrepreneurship is being introduced. And I'm sure a number of entrepreneurs, current and those who are prospective ones, are looking forward to benefiting from the expertise from the billionaire icon himself, who is, of course, a BVI resident. But getting right into the story for this week, one that is not so sexy, not so prominent on our minds, that of petroleum management. I don't know how LPG smart you are, Edgewenka. I know before today's conference, I wasn't so LPG smart. I must admit, on a few occasions, I did accept a phone call or two, albeit inside the vehicle, but still very dangerous, while I was refueling my vehicle at a petrol station here or there. And those are things that we take for granted. I must admit as well that I have willingly and unknowingly allowed a provider to bring me a corroded LPG bottle to my home and so forth. And those things really presented some serious challenges. But beyond that, many homes, many buildings, many commercial and residential buildings are pretty much a situation that can explode and really see many people losing their lives, because the pipes that are used to convey the liquid petroleum gas from these LPG bottles to our stoves and so forth are not necessarily safe, and we often take those things for granted. Today, SOL and the Department for Disaster Management, supported by the Ministry of Communications and Works, launched a petroleum safety campaign, and it will be running for the next 3 months. Now, to give you the context based on what I've just said, of the seriousness of this issue, we all know of several oil spills taking place in this country. I can recall 2008, and just recently as well, just a year or so ago, we had a couple of incidents right there in Road Town where folks decided to just dump petroleum products, willy-nilly, thinking maybe it will disappear somehow in the thin air. Let us listen to the Communications and Works Minister, Honorable Mark Vanterpool, as he pretty much documented the challenges he experienced addressing this issue and the implications for the environment and, of course, for the BVI on a whole.
In my short time in dealing with some of these matters, we had a few incidents. One was very serious in my view, right in the city of Rotterdam, where a deliberate act was performed by pouring oil into the sewage treatment plant. The sewage pump station at the roundabout, which created a major spill in the gutter along the way, and major efforts and costs in cleanup. But more importantly, the environmental impact it had on the town. But we had to urgently avoid the oil being spilled into the sea. That could create more danger to our shoreline and the sea life. So I think persons need to be more aware, which is what this campaign is about, of what can happen. And while the accidents can happen, we must also be prepared to deal with persons who deliberately commit these acts. And this is one of the reasons we are taking this legislation forward in support of this, and especially in support of the environment.
Minister Honorable Mark Vanterpool speaking at the launch of the Petroleum Safety Campaign. In fact, it's called Petroleum Safety the Smart Way campaign earlier today at the Marriott by the Sea Hotel. And next to the Minister for Communications, you saw Charlene Dabrio, Director at the Department for Disaster Management, and Liz Wyatt. She is the General Manager at SOL BVI. Liz Wyatt did say this is a Caribbean-wide initiative, And of course, during that particular launch, as I was indicating earlier, in terms of the education process for me as a resident, as an individual, we got to see firsthand some of the cases via video footage of poor petroleum safety management in terms of the way they are transported, in terms of the storage issues, and also the individual mishaps. For example, folks driving off from petrol stations without taking out the nozzle from their vehicles. Of course, that's in the case of the US, where you actually you do self-service, but in the BVI we are always served by the attendants. But apart from that, of course, there are the folks who were using their cell phones or some other form of ignition that created a fire and really created some serious and hazardous situations. In many cases, lives were lost. And this campaign is really a serious one. Many people are on the brink of a disaster, not realizing it.
What are some of the concerns, Sean, that they have with the LPG gas in the homes particularly?
Yeah, and one is the one I mentioned earlier in terms of the corroding LPG bottles. Mm-hmm. And in many cases, folks would say the bottle is leaking, and that is very well so in some cases. But also the lines running from the LPG bottles, which are for the most part outside of the homes, into the building and connected to the stove. In some cases, they need to be replaced. In many buildings, of course, some buildings are 30, 50, and so forth years old, and that line needs to be replaced. In addition to that, in many instances, both public and private buildings, commercial and residential homes, the LPG bottles are situated very close to electrical connections, electrical lines, and so forth, to the meter. So you may see the LPG bottle right here, and you may see the BVIEC meter. No disrespect to BVIEC, but certainly you will see the meter right next door. And it may appear to be quite convenient for the folks who are coming to either replace the LPG bottles or to read the meters and so forth. But those things really point to a dangerous practice that has been going on for a number of years. And as the experts in the area, in particular Liz Wyatt, who is very, very much acquainted with these issues, she's saying this needs to be remedied. And the minister did speak to the concerns as well, and we've reported on this whenever they happen, of the oil spills, as you heard him say, the danger to the environment and so forth. And they're looking at moving into the House of Assembly with an act which was first drafted by the former Virgin Islands Party administration in 2011, and now the National Democratic Party administration is looking to bring that into the Parliament, and they are going to the House of Assembly, and they are going to introduce strict penalties for folks who violate or who basically deliberately dump LPG products in the environment, whether in the guts, wherever, what have you, or as in the case as the minister pointed out down there at the pump station in Rotown.
So in regards to the cylinders, the canisters,
Yes.
and the electricity together, a coincidence of a spark and an undetected leak could be a disaster.
That's right.
in that area.
Could lead to an explosion. And you may recall, Cromwell, and today while she spoke, I said, wait a minute, we all heard of an explosion that took place somewhere along Main Street. I know exactly where, but I wouldn't say where for the purpose of this discussion. And we wondered what caused it. And I was advised that it was an LPG bottle that exploded. Now, it could have been, because I don't know of any official information brought forward saying exactly what caused it. I may be wrong, subject to correction. But an LPG bottle exploding sounds like a bomb exploding in the area. And that really did cause some concerns. Luckily, no one was hurt. And I'm not sure that there were any structural damages to the building. But it could be that a situation like that could happen, for example, at a school or a residential area, or you name it, and folks can get hurt. So basically the campaign, based on what the officials are saying, will help to inform all of us and to improve the levels of awareness about how we manage LPG in particular, but not just LPG, but of course all petroleum-related products.
Were they able to give any advice or safety tips to homeowners, people living in homes or apartments, as to how what to look up for, how to make sure that they're safe?
That's a very good question, because one of the things that Liz Wyatt said was you need to check your pipes. For example, most people, I'm told, have galvanized pipes in their homes conveying the gas from the LPG bottle to their stoves. And she suggested that those pipes are best they should be copper pipes, to put it that way, instead of galvanized. So copper pipes, she says, are safer. Copper, yes, are safer than galvanized, apart from, of course, replacing the old pipes. And she also indicated that the rerouting of the gas line and to make sure they are far away from the electrical line is also of critical importance. Basically, these things are speaking to, the building regulations and so forth, and how those things are done. I'm not too fair on those, and I'm sure that in many cases homeowners are advised appropriately, but I may be wrong.
Well, I guess it's important to consider that the gas lines going to the stove are very close to is very close to fire.
That's right. And one point she mentioned before you go forward, and I remember that she was saying as well that sometimes in your home you're smelling gas and you're blaming the LPG bottle, saying it's leaking. That is not necessarily the case. In many cases, it's actually the line, as I was saying earlier, the galvanized line. Sorry,
and in a lot of cases, the lines are behind the stove,
Yes.
out of sight.
Out of sight.
Yeah, the lines are out of sight, so you would have to make a deliberate effort to check them periodically.
Yeah. I recall using soap sod to make sure to see if leak was coming through and so forth in lines. And of course, when you're renting from someone, for instance, you would really require the landlord to be vigilant and ensure that those lines are safe. But it would be to everyone's benefit, whether it's your home or not, whether it's your building or not, to inform the owners and so forth about what you're smelling, what you're suspecting, so that the relevant checks can be made. Because these things are potential risk, potential disasters waiting to happen. Also, the transportation of LPG bottles and the way they're done. We saw an incident via video where an entire truck, actually the truck, I believe, got in an accident of some kind, and the LPG bottles exploded one by one, and it was really a tragic scene there on the highway. Just imagine that happening someplace in BVI. As Liz Wyatt said, imagine a truck going up Joe's Hill loaded with LPG bottles, and for some reason there's an accident and the explosions.
Yeah. I'm hoping that the campaign will include a lot of in-home safety tips, because I know sometimes you forget, you turn your gas on and you forget the lighter, you go to look for a match and come back and the gas is flowing out all the time.
Yes, and then there's a kaboom effect. Yes.
You create a very dangerous situation.
Yes,
so if you're smelling gas,
yes.
Check to make sure your burners are all off before you light a match.
Precisely.
And then try to let that smell dissipate before you try to start that fire, because it's happened where I've had a big poof.
Yes.
And so those are dangerous things. But I'm hoping that when it all comes forward, the campaign comes forward, that we'll get a lot of in-home safety tips along with the other technical aspects of safety.
So it's really important, and it's a welcome campaign, Edgerencan, as the minister rightly said.
It's a great idea.
Yes, great idea.
Yeah. Thanks for that report.
You're welcome.
Sean. That was very informative, very interesting. Thank you very much for that.